Welcome to Parenting is Final Fantasy. I'm Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And on this show, my brother Ira asks me questions about being a parent. Very few questions about Final Fantasy, though it's come up. Just a fun title for the show.
Big surprise, right?
Yeah, sure.
Drew,
yeah.
I got a question for you.
Right.
What's it?
Uh-huh.
What is it like reading to a baby? Do you do voices? Do you perform? Does it matter what the words are? Do you censor content?
Well, okay. There's a lot of questions in there, actually.
It's all the same question, sort of.
Fair enough. Sort of. Kind of. So, yes, I read to my baby all the time. And there are actually times whenever I forget for a day or two or haven't done quite as much, I always feel really bad and be like, I try to redo them every day, but a lot of those things you tell yourself, do X, Y, and Z every single day. It's like, it's tough to do. Like, when just anything every single day with him. But yeah, in the beginning, I definitely stuck to a lot of simpler sort of nursery rhyme type of things. A lot of Dr. Seuss. I was reading him a lot of Dr. Seuss in the hospital.
Right.
But also in the hospital, I was reading him a book that your wife got him, The Cats of Kilkenny.
Yeah. When they were in Ireland.
Right. And it's more narrative and a little dark at times. A lot of the stories end with people dying and are based on true life, and so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, so at first, there was that kind of back and forth a bit, but I would lean more into the sing-songy, the nursery rhymey. He seemed to like a lot of that stuff. But recently, I've been reading him Goosebumps.
I specifically remember the Mirror Goosebumps book.
Yeah, no, that's the one I've been reading.
Oh, good. That one scared the bejesus out of me as a kid.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. We're only in the opening chapters, but it's funny. It was kind of a bit of a transition I made because I was reading him one of the ones that's a bit more sing-songy. And we've got a lot of books, which is great. So you can try a lot of different things. And when something isn't quite working, he's still kind of fussing at you through the reading of it. It can almost be too much noise pollution there. You're like, I don't want to just scream words at your face while you're crying. so you try something else. And a couple of weeks ago, picked up that Get Invisible Goosebumps book because Mom, at some point in the last couple of years, gifted all of our old Goosebumps, or many of our old Goosebumps books to me, and then it's like half of them I got, the other half you got, I think, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got a bunch as well. So I was like, I remember loving that one. So I picked it up and started reading it to him, and he fell asleep. And I was like, yes.
Perfect.
Excellent. And part of it is because somewhere in there, in your question, you asked about doing the voices. Right? And yes, I do. I do lots of voices. I have a lot of fun with doing the voices. And he seems to have a lot of fun with them. But there's a kind of suggestion from the text of, again, sing-songy stuff is more up here and the wheels on the bus and all that stuff, and when you start to read the Goosebumps, it's, and then me and my friends went up to the attic and now I'm down here and then boom, out of the corner, doing a lot of that stuff. Dude, I'm eating it up. I'm having so much fun. And he seems to be enjoying it. But yeah, it is interesting that he lately, even though he's 7 months old or whatever, seems to prefer narrative to sing-songy. And I think it's because his brain, or at least to go to sleep, his brain hooks on to rhymes and the words. And like when we're showing him the picture books and things like that, that seems to activate his brain. Whereas now when I read him Goosebumps, he wants to look at the page. He wants to understand where I'm getting these words from. Because, it's not the same. And he wants to touch the book. He wants to turn the pages, though he doesn't fully understand how that works. He's a baby, so I have to be careful he doesn't rip up these old books that we love. I don't want him totally tearing them apart. But I do want him to get tactile with the book and kind of flip through it and understand this is where Dada is getting the words from, and this is something we can do together. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun experimenting with, different kinds of books and seeing, and he'll go through all kinds of phases, and that's why it's good to have a big variety,
Do you have books that he can touch?
Yes, we do. We have several of those, like softer. Right. There's some that are kind of made out of cloth, or some he really likes that are kind of this little crunchy material that are great. There are pediatrician. One of the things they do is every time we go in for a checkup, he gets what they call an age-appropriate book, and those often have little tactile bits in it. So it'll be like, this is a pig, and then there's a little bit of pig skin in the book that you can touch, and that this is a horse, and there will be some horse hair that cool. The baby can touch. So there are things like that too. So yeah, we've tried to do as much in terms of books that he can touch, and even in some of the sturdier ones, it's like, have at it, kid. Some of the ones that aren't classics or whatever. But yeah.
So some of the questions I've asked you, we sort of pushed to
the
future.
Wait. Before we move on.
Yes.
I just remembered another part of the question that you asked. Which was, I think, about censoring.
Ah, yes.
And to this point, no. I mean, we're obviously not showing him graphic nudity or anything like that. Would be ridiculous, and I'm pretty sure illegal. If not, it should be. But, in terms of visuals and things, or graphic violence, none of that type of stuff, obviously. But in terms of words, not yet.
Sure.
And in fact, somebody got us for Christmas a book, and I'm gonna bleep this, I'm gonna censor this, but just everyone prepared, because you might be listening to this, a family show here. But somebody got me a book called Go the Sleep.
Who would do such a thing?
What kind of cool uncle would do that? And maybe the best thing about that is I read it aloud during our Christmas celebration to our son, who did precisely as requested.
Right. Perfect.
And, I said all the words. I'm not worried about language until he starts to speak. It's almost like I don't want his first word to be mother, but it probably won't be. And then, after that, we'll start to censor ourselves a little bit around him. But for now, it's like, read him the book and have some fun with it.
So this is another future question. Are you going to lie to your child? And I don't mean like in a fun way, like
like Santa?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So, for example, I will lie to high schoolers if I think that they will think it's funny a few moments later when it's obvious I was lying.
Sure.
Right. So I said to one of my classes, first period decided they really want to do a journal entry this Friday, so we're all going to do a journal entry. And seventh period looked at me like they thought I was serious, and it only lasted a moment. But yeah, I'm talking about the sort of the Santa Claus tooth fairy lies. Okay. What do you think?
I don't know. We've only loosely talked about this a little bit, and I don't know. I guess I got to figure out, do some research, ask around, talk to some people, and make a decision by the time, he starts to imprint those kinds of things. The Santa Claus one is really weird because I feel like on the one hand, I remember that being fairly traumatic for me as a kid, learning that Santa wasn't real. And being very upset about it.
For me, it was Sesame Street. I wanted to get to Sesame Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, that's tough, because my natural instinct would be to say, if we were watching Sesame Street, and Locke says, "Hey, Dad, can we go to Sesame Street?" I would probably say, buddy, we can't. But, we could try to do X, Y, and Z. We can make Sesame Street more of a real place by, I encourage that kind of thing. I'm definitely not going to do the, and this is almost too real to say because we've lost so many pets recently, and our Cat is very, very old right now. But the one he'll remember is Prompto someday. And I'm not going to tell him that Prompto went off to live on the farm.
Right. Okay.
That I think you definitely don't do. I almost literally feel like I should do some research on the Santa question. It's like, is that really traumatic? Is that just like a day where you feel bad or dumb or whatever and you get on with it? And Christmas was still rad. I still love Christmas to this day, despite the fact that, we don't get into certain aspects of it. It's always been a great family day for us. And even the iconography. Like, I like Santa. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So, the tooth fairy thing, I don't know. That always seemed a little bit weird.
Like you're inviting the scary fae into your home.
Right? Exchanging money for teeth is pretty,
it's kind of gruesome.
Gross. Yeah. It's a bit weird. So, you know what? It's good that you've put this question back into my head, or like you said, it is kind of a future question, but it's something I should really start thinking a little bit more about now, as he is starting to develop more consciousness and recognizing things and having a personality or whatever. It's I think it's going to come up on me quicker than I realize, those kinds of how much do you play into those fantasies or little lies, which ones are little, which ones are totally fine for down the road, and which ones do you really not do, like the dog went to live on the farm. So yeah, good question to bring up with the missus.
All right, at least one more here.
Yeah.
We talked a bit about manners and how you teach your kid manners and what your plan-ish is for the future on that one. One of the things our parents, I think, did well was teach us how to behave in public.
Yes.
And that's a similar idea. So one of the things Mom told me that prompted this question was, y'all were out and you turned the video was playing on your phone, and you turned it down and said to Lachlan, "This is too loud for the people around us." Now, obviously, he doesn't understand, right? He's only, how old is he? 7 months, 8 months?
7 months, 7.5. Yeah, okay. He's in that. Yeah.
So that sort of modeling behavior is one of the things we talked about an episode or two ago. What other, how else are you modeling? What else are you thinking about as you model? Are you just modeling good behavior automatically now?
Yeah, and I think the thing that I did there, that I almost don't even notice that I do them, but I narrated out loud, and I always tell Lachlan, and this is something for me in general, and one of the reasons why I think a lot of us are having a really hard time right now, is because I like things to have reasons and to make sense.
Sure.
And to follow a certain logical whatever. You'll remember this, the thing I hated the most as a kid was when someone would either tell me because I said so, or I'll tell you when you're older.
So one of the things I do as a teacher about this is sometimes a kid will ask me and I'll say, please don't do X, Y, and Z, or please do this or that. And if they ask, if I think they will think it's funny, I say, because I said so. And then, of course, we'll have an actual conversation. But it's because you hated it so much that I think it's funny now.
Yeah. And I really did, because it has always just seemed to me that if I absolutely should be doing what you're telling me to do, it should be very easy to explain to me a reason why. And I just appreciate that quality in people, an ability to explain themselves. And I think it's something that's gotten further and further away, and we're losing track of to some degree. But yeah, I've really kicked it into high gear with him ever since. This is why, everything from this is why we clean the dishes to this is why singing songs is fun, and hey, you gotta get your strength so you can sit up because you want to be able to do things by yourself. You're not going to be able to walk if you don't crawl, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, he doesn't get the language of it yet, but it is my hope that those kinds of things, and being in public is one of those things. And even if he can't control some of those impulses, and if he's really throwing a fit in public, you pick him up, you take him away. But the whole time I'm going to say, hey, buddy, it's all right. First, you're safe. It's okay. And also, we don't need to scream when everyone's just hanging out and having a good time. Even if it's not, I want him to be around that concept. back to I think the impetus of the question, which is that our parents really wanted to make it fundamentally clear from us from an early age. We are not the only people in the world.
Right. Oh, goodness.
That we are not the center of the world. And I think there's a lot of people whose parents, quite frankly, didn't teach them that lesson.
Yes, there are.
And so while I want my son to be confident and, believe in himself, that I think is the thing that I want to be more fundamental even than language and attitude and personality, is just an understanding from day one that sometimes mommy and daddy are talking to each other right now. And if you're crying for a minute, we're going to have to ignore you for just a minute. You don't torture your child in that way. But I do try to make sure there are times he understands we got to play with the dog right now. There are other things, even as a baby, when you're the center of attention 90% of the time. And you've seen it even when you're in the room. When he's in the room, He sucks up all the oxygen in the room, doesn't he? It's very easy for everyone to pay all of the attention to him. But I do want to make sure that we instill in him a recognition of, you're not the only person in the room. You're not the most important person in the room. Everybody in the room is important. So, yeah, I do think that even at this early of an age, you can start to instill that so that it's second nature. Thanks for listening. See you next time.